Hello guys, welcome to episode 2, and we're at the circuit court with
Sergeant Austin with the Sheriff's Office.
He's really cool. He does canine stuff, but we'll get into that later.
So we're going into the south pet tower of the circuit court. Right now, this is our family division. This is where they would hear domestic violence cases, domestic violence cases, divorce cases, things like that.
Oh, the judge's chambers. I heard about that in the shows and they say, come to my chambers.
This is one of our circuit court courtrooms here for me.
Whoa.
So this is where they do all sorts of hearings and what have you. This is not one that has a juror's box at it per se. So this would be like for a judge would have a bench hearing. So multiple tables here. So this is for one of the juvenile courts on this side. So there might be juvenile services, a state's attorney. There might be a attorney for the parents, and somebody attorney for the juvenile as well. And then the judge would sit up on there. Over to the right hand side over here, you'd have the witnesses that would sit there on the flag, and they would tell their testimony and what have you. And then we'd staff this with deputies if somebody's in custody.
Oh yeah, is there a bailiff that the security stays in?
So the circuit court does not have bailiffs.
Oh.
District court has bailiffs. Circuit court, the sheriff's office runs all the security for the courtrooms. So what you think of typical like bailiff duties, like handing papers for the judge and things like that, we don't do that here. The sheriff's office handles any of the law enforcement action that occurs within the courtroom. So they have their clerks would do the like exchange of any paperwork or anything like that. Our job would be the function of making sure everybody's safe in the courtroom. So if like a fight breaks out or we need to lock somebody up, if the judge says, hey, we're going to take this person into custody, we'll be the ones that take them into custody.
Has a fight actually?
Oh yeah, we've had them.
Really?
Yeah, on the circuit court also 2 weeks ago.
All the
Yeah,
time?
like 2 weeks ago. Yeah.
2 weeks ago. But a judge is there.
Yeah, then the judge goes off the bench and goes back to their chambers in the locked area or whatever. We handle that and then arrest who needs to be arrested, and then that's how we handle that. So.
It's not like that in West
No, much different cases.
Okay, hello. This is the interview section with
Sergeant Steve Austin with the Montgomery County Sheriff's Office. So I'm a deputy sheriff sergeant, so I'm the supervisor of my unit. I am the unit supervisor for the canine section, which means that I'm in charge of all of the dogs that work for our department. We have currently 5 canines that work in our department. 4 of them are explosives detection and criminal apprehension dogs, so they track bad guys, for lack of a better word, and look for explosives and guns. And then 1 is narcotics detection and criminal apprehension. And they do all of the patrol work that the other dogs do, but then they also look for narcotics. So they're trained to find that. And their primary job is to go to the jail and do scans inside the jail to make sure that no drugs are getting administered into the correctional facilities.
Oh, well,
So.
I'm doing an interview at the jail next. We'll look forward to that. But I always wondered how do they pick up the scent? Like, do they have to get the clothes, or like, do they have to give them cocaine so they know what it smells like?
So 2 different kind of questions there. 1 is on the patrol side of giving them clothes to, I assume, track and find somebody that we're looking for. So our dogs are, because they're kind of jack of all trades, master of none. We don't need the clothes or anything to track somebody. We just need where the recent human odor was. So, hey, the bad guy came through here, he ran that way. If they went through that direction, we can try to track and find them. And it's just kind of best guess scenario of the dog is tracking someone. And we're hoping it's the person that just robbed the store, did whatever they did that we're tracking them for. And so if we have a good spot, like on midnight shift per se, midnight shift is really easy to track somebody because there's not a lot of people out. And typically the person that did, let's say it's a robbery and ran away, there's only a handful of people out, so we're probably tracking the right person. But if it's in downtown Rockville in the middle of the day at lunchtime, it's going to be much more difficult to track that person. So we're going to use the odds probability and the dog's nose to try to find hopefully a good start to the track, and then use them to try to get the general direction of where the person went.
Oh, I always thought they had to like get a scent or
So
something.
we do have tracking dogs in the county that don't work for my agency but work for like county police, that they can get like a pillowcase of a missing kid or something like that, and that dog can specifically look for that odor, and they're trained to, I give you this odor, find this odor, and then find the person that belongs to it. So that's how they start their tracking stuff, is they do that with an odor of someone. Our dogs don't necessarily do that because we are responding to an active crime in progress and then trying to track from there.
Oh, okay.
So.
How do they find the drugs?
So with that, it's all games. We play games with the dogs. The dogs love coming to work and playing games. So we start out with detection training. So what that means is we introduce them to an odor. It could be any odor. It doesn't have to necessarily be drugs or a bomb or whatever, because there's dogs out there, not from my agency, but from other private organizations that find like bed bugs in hotels and what have you. So you have to find what that root odor is. So what is the root odor of, like, let's say cocaine? Is the coca plant and what have you, and how they process it. And all of that root odor is the same. So we introduce the dog to that root odor of this is cocaine. And then when we show them the root odor of that, we put in a safe environment so that they don't inhale it or anything like that, and it could hurt them. But once they get the odor, we then pair it with the reward. So it's, hey, here's cocaine. Oh, you smell that? Here's your ball. And then they go, oh, this is cool. And then eventually they start to realize that when I smell this, and I let my handler know that I smell this by doing a trained response, whether that be a sit, a down. My dog stares. He just stops and stares because I want him to. He's a bomb dog, so I just want him to stop moving. So stop moving and look at what you're smelling, and then he won't move from that position until he's given his reward. So we then pair that odor with the reward, and then they think it's a game. I found this. Now come and play with me. Because that's how we train.
So they find the root odor of the drug.
Yep.
And so for like weapons, they have to find the root odor of
Yeah,
that
so
too.
like let's say it's a gun. We try to find the exploded gunpowder.
Oh, and the same would work for bombs.
Yep,
right?
exactly.
Okay. So for the first 3 questions, it's going to be about background and career path.
Sure.
The first question is, what got you interested in law enforcement in the first place, and how did you end up in? He was, I think you said this, but he was originally in like the Firearms Investigation Unit. He used to be a detective. So what led you to be a firearms investigator?
Sure. So really to start out with my background with that is I've always wanted to be some kind of police officer. My uncle lived next door when I was growing up, and he had one of his friends named Danny Kessel. He was a Montgomery County police officer. And he used to come and visit, and we used to play on his car. He used to hit his lights. And that was the coolest thing ever. So that kind of got me interested. And then eventually, when I was in elementary school and middle school and what have you, I had other officers from Montgomery County Police came out and would do like canine demos, meaning that they're bringing their dogs out and showing what their dogs can do to our school. And I thought it was the coolest job ever. I always wanted to be a canine handler, and then but knowing that you had to be some kind of police officer first, and then you can get into those jobs when you're in the department. I knew that I wanted to do some kind of police something. And I'd always, obviously help my community and kind of give back in that respect. But ultimately, why did people want to become the police? They want to drive fast, they want to carry a gun, they want to chase bad guys. That's what I wanted to do. Like, I thought that was cool. So you see that on the movies, that's what I want to do. Some people are driven to do that, so that's what I wanted to do. And then the more that you do it, you kind of learn like what is involved in that. And it's not just about driving fast and doing all that stuff. There's an art to it. And then I started in high school as a police explorer with the Montgomery County Police, and then an intern with the Montgomery County Police alcohol unit. And then from there, went to college. During college, 9/11 happened, and it got me interested in kind of that kind of terrorism study kind of stuff, and it really made me, when I got into canine, be interested in being a bomb dog handler, kind of with that. So it all kind of built upon each other. And I went to school to be a police officer, so I was going for criminal justice. I went to Montgomery College to kind of start, which I recommend that to anybody. If you don't really know what you want to do, go to community college, figure it out. And then after 9/11, I kind of stopped my going to school and started applying to police departments. I applied for the Montgomery County Sheriff's Office, Park Police, and Gaithersburg City.
Did you have to do the, what's it called, the academy first?
Yeah, so you have to apply to an agency. The way it works around here is you apply to an agency then picks you up and sends you to the academy.
Oh, so, that's how you do it.
So you get hired, you're an employee. No, you're an employee of the department, and they send you to the academy. Now, that doesn't mean that you're going to stay, because if you quit, if you don't pass something in the academy, you can be let go. But you're getting paid the whole time that you're there. You're an employee.
I did know that. Yeah, another officer told me that, because I wanted to go to the academy to be a detective.
Now, there are some places that you can pay your way through, but you just, most places, so like there is, like, you can go to the PG Municipal Academy. So PG Community College has their own academy, and you can pay your way to go through that academy. And then from there, you can say, hey, I'm a certified police officer in the state of Maryland, I'm just not commissioned yet. So somebody can try to hire you, and then you can get sworn in and commissioned and all that stuff. So there is a way to do that. Some other states require that you go to an academy first and you pay your way like you're going to college. Here in Montgomery County and most of the counties around the DC area, you get hired by a department, and then the department sends you to the academy. So here we get hired by the sheriff's office, go to Montgomery County Police Academy in Gaithersburg, and then we
Oh, it's in Gaithersburg.
yeah, it's in Gaithersburg. And then from there you then go to your department and you start your field training. So I can't remember where that was going with that.
Oh yeah, we just went to a
Yeah.
war thing. It's okay, we can just go to the
That's
next
okay.
question. It was all interesting. The second question, how did your time as a detective in Firearms change your view of crime and justice?
So, being a detective in the Firearms Unit, I went there really young. So I started my career here in February of 2003. When I got out of the academy, I turned 21 in the academy. You have to be 21 to be an officer, so I turned 21 in the academy. Then got sworn to be an officer, started my field training process, which is 14 weeks after that. And then during that time, right before I got hired, was the DC sniper event, the Beltway sniper that was going around shooting people from his car.
Oh my gosh, what?
Yeah.
When was this?
2002, October of 2002.
I was not alive, that's why I don't know.
So October 2002, we had the DC Beltway sniper. I recommend you look up that case. It's
Yes,
actually
I
a
will,
really
because it's
interesting
super
case.
interesting.
With that, it was for 3 weeks, people were just getting randomly shot by this guy that was had drilled a hole in the back of his car, and him and his son, which it wasn't his son, but were going around.
Oh, no, I'm thinking Son of Sam.
Yeah, no, wrong one. We're just going around and using a rifle to shoot people out of the back of the car. So for 3 weeks, the police department, the sheriff's office, everybody around here was kind of trying to find out who this was. After I got hired here, they started what's called the Firearms Task Force. And that ended up being a joint venture between the Sheriff's Office, County Police, Park Police, all the agencies within Montgomery County that had gun-related crime that maybe overlapped. So there might be somebody who was wanted here by the Sheriff's Office, but they were committing gun crime by the County Police. And then you would find the gun on the warrant, but the County Police wouldn't necessarily know that you found the gun. So we ended up kind of collaborating, kind of deal, kind of make a long story short with that. So I got into the gun unit almost right away in my career. So I went from being a deputy in our court and transport section, which moved inmates up and down the highway to bring them to court, various hearings and what have you. It's where all the deputies start. And then I went over to our domestic violence unit. Very shortly after going to our domestic violence unit, I went to the gun unit. And our domestic violence unit handles all of our gun crime for that, because if you have a protection order in the state of Maryland and with the federal system too, you're not allowed to be in possession of a gun any longer. So it's a federal law now. It's a state law as well.
Is this
And
new?
no, it's been in place for forever. As long as I've been a deputy, it's been in place at least 20-some years. So you would get the protection order in, and if the person then failed to surrender their gun, or we found out that they used a gun in an act of domestic violence or whatever, you could go to the Firearms Investigations Task Force, and which I was on, and then we would follow up with that. And then ultimately people that were involved in domestic violence also were involved in narcotics trafficking and what have you. It's like generally bad people don't stick to one bad thing that they do.
Oh,
they
yeah,
stick to
I
a
learned
lot of
that
bad
in
things that they do.
class.
So there was a lot of overlapping crime with that, so that's why we had the task force that was created. So I went there fairly young, brand new deputy, and learned kind of how to do investigations, how to talk to people. I think it kind of shaped who I was as an officer as well, or a deputy as well, because I found out that there was ways that you could talk to people that you may not have anything in common with. Like, I don't have anything in common with somebody who's out there slinging narcotics or beating their wife or anything like that, but there is a mutual respect that you could kind of have. Maybe not respect what they're doing, but you could have a respect for each other, and it leads to actually getting information out of people. And so it kind of helped me kind of talk to people and help de-escalate situations and what have you with that, just naturally. For the fact of how it affected my view on criminal justice, it made me realize just how hard it is, rightfully so, to take away somebody's freedom. and take away their property. It rightfully so, we should be doing our diligence before we decide that somebody in this country shouldn't be allowed to move around freely any longer. Should be removed from our society to face whatever punishment they have. It can't just be a he said, she said, I said, they said kind of event. I gotta corroborate it. I gotta have evidence behind it. I gotta have timelines. I gotta do my diligence as a detective for that. So it made me realize just how important it is to have a thorough investigation to make sure that you have good convictions on things.
To be like 100% sure.
Yeah, you gotta be 100%
Yeah.
sure. At least as reasonably sure as you possibly can be. You're never gonna get the full, most accurate story out of anything. There's always three sides to any story, right? There's the one party story, the other party story, and the truth is in the middle. So.
Oh, I thought it was like a witness.
Well, you could have a witness, but then again, the witness could have seen something and not know the whole story also. So the truth is out there somewhere, and you might get close to it, but you're never gonna have the full truth. Even if you watch something on an officer's body camera or something like that, you don't know what happened before it, after it, or what have you. So we get a lot of information from that kind of stuff. And not only that, but it helped me kind of create the fact that a case isn't done just because you because you arrested somebody.
Oh.
We did a lot of things too, where like we would arrest somebody on a case, and then we had good reason to arrest them. We had good stuff, but then we'd follow up with it. Hey, who are they talking to at the jail? Like, are they phone calling somebody? And then all the jail calls are recorded. So we would then go and pull the recordings, and then it'd be like, hey, I'm putting a hit out on this person because they're going to be a witness, and we'd get other crimes out of it. So it'd be things like that. So the criminal justice for me is there's a follow through all the way to the end of a case that you're looking at. That's part of that it maybe also becomes super kind of like, I'll say kind of proud of our system that we have here in the United States, because you do have you are innocent until proven guilty. And it's my job as the law enforcement officer that's investigating the crime against you to do my diligence to make sure that I'm not putting you in jail unjustly. So I take pride in that. I know every officer I've ever worked with takes pride in that as well.
You
and
are
it's
so
fun.
cool.
So I appreciate that. So we take a lot of pride in that, and I think it's not that way everywhere. I think we have a good system around here because we have a lot of smart officers here.
Yeah.
I would say that it's to be any kind of street level law enforcement officer, a deputy sheriff, a police officer, anything like that, and really investigator of any kind. You have to know the law better than the judges, because you're going to be teaching that law, because it might be some obscure law that they don't know about necessarily. You have to write as good as a state's attorney, and you have to figure out how to defend yourself and debate better than the defense attorney.
Oh,
and
you mean
have to do that
when
like
you fill
that.
out the paperwork?
Yeah, when you fill out the paperwork. When I write a report, I've got to write a report for somebody who may never actually talk to me. So they have to understand exactly
Everything,
what I'm
yeah.
trying to convey in my message to them. And it might just be that report. Cameras are important, cameras are good, but having a full outline of what happened during this event could solve everything, could help anything out. So you have to be a really good writer when it comes to that stuff. So I give any criminal justice student, I would say that one of the best things that you can do is be a good writer and then have confidence in speaking in front of people. Like you need that, because you're going to be out. You're going to be out all the time. I've seen officers that are really, really good on the street, can talk to all sorts of people on the street. Then when it comes to sit time in court, they get really nervous, and their case kind of like falls apart just because their personality does not allow for that type of interaction with people. So it's kind of hard. So it takes practice.
Well, good thing I'm good at both. That
There
made
you
me
go.
super confident
There
when
you
I
go.
do this job. What led you to switch from being a detective to working with canines?
So in the career in law enforcement, at least within Montgomery County and the DC area, being a deputy on the street or being a detective or being a canine handler or whatever are not all necessarily mutually exclusive. Like you don't get to like pick like I'm going to be a detective. You don't. Not everybody doesn't get to be a detective. Your resume may not allow it. There may not just be your time to do it or what have you. You have to apply for those jobs as they come up within your department. So so you don't just go I'm going to be a detective. Now you could go to a different agency like FBI or whatever. Everyone there is a detective. Like that's all they do is investigations. It's part of their name, Federal Bureau of Investigation.
I wanted to be a detective for sex crimes, but like I don't think the FBI does that.
Not necessarily,
Yeah.
And not that, but they do. Think about this too: is there's different branches of government, right? So if you're looking for sex crimes, most sex crimes are on the state level crimes, right? So you'd have to join some kind of state level law enforcement. A city department that does their investigation.
Yeah, I was thinking
a county. Gaithersburg doesn't do investigations for those though.
Oh,
That's
really?
Montgomery County Police because it's a major crime. So Montgomery County Police does the sex crime. So you'd have to go and become a police officer, do your time on the road, and then build up your resume, and then become a detective if that job opening
How
comes
do
up.
you build up your resume so you can be a detective?
Oh, that's a great question. So if you can pretty much do whatever you want. Here, you have a lot of independence when you're a police officer or deputy sheriff or whatever. You have a job to do, right? You clock in during the day, and then you go in your car and you go, right?
Oh,
Nobody's telling you what to do, right? So you can do, I could pull this car over and find guns and wanted people and drugs. I could pull this car over and just write seatbelt tickets. I could go answer this call and do follow-up investigation. I could go answer this call and just write a report and pass it on to the detectives. If you're somebody who goes to the call, writes a good report, does follow-up investigation as much as you can on the street level, you're gonna build a reputation that, hey, you go that extra mile and you do a little investigation. So if you do some investigation, they might send you to an investigator school. And then you build up your resume that way. And because they'll teach you on the job. And it's all in what you want. I know a lot of people that want to, like think about it like an officer on a motorcycle. Their whole job is traffic, so they do collisions, they do traffic enforcement, so like might be a complaint from a neighborhood, hey, there's always cars that run this stop sign, and my kid plays outside. Cool, they'll go handle that traffic complaint. They're not out there looking for crime per se. It's important what they do because it's for public safety, but they're not looking for crime. Well, I've never wanted to do traffic, that's not my thing. I wanna go look for crime. So I wanna find wanted people, I wanna do that, that's what I wanna do. So everybody picks their career path once you're in. Patrol or that level of like the deputy sheriff that does the court and transport stuff, that's the beginning part, and then you build your resume up as you go over the years. And you kind of find out what you like. That's on the state level.
I thought you had to become an officer and then you just take a test and then you can be a detective.
Not necessarily. So you become an officer, you build your resume, and then what happens is a job opening comes up and you apply for that in there. So, but if you don't like that job, let's say you're a detective or like, this is not what I wanted, you can always go back to being an officer again.
What if it's like a detective job and it's like for homicide?
So typically the homicide detectives are the most experienced detectives. So you go be like a station level detective investigating burglaries and maybe some thefts or things like that.
Oh, is there like a level?
Yeah, so there's all sorts of different ones. Now, like some departments, like Rockville City has detectives. Now they deal with like lower level crime to detect, but they might handle like everything up to like robberies and things like that. Well, county police, because it's a bigger department, their station level detectives would handle like burglaries, some thefts, maybe some street robberies, but then like commercial robberies are handled by a robbery unit. Auto thefts, carjackings are handled by their auto theft unit. Murders are handled by homicide, things like that. And then firearms are handled by the firearms unit. So the bigger the department is, the more specialization you can get into.
So like if you're an officer, like you're building your resume, and like for me, for example, I want to do sex crimes, but there's a detective job that's opening and it's just for like general or homicide. Do I still have to apply to that? Oh, and then I can later transfer?
Yeah, when something comes open.
Oh, okay.
I know a lot of people also that have done the sex crime thing or child exploitation or whatever, and they'll do it for several years and they'll find it rewarding, but then because of all the stories and all the horrific stuff that they have to see and listen to the stories of the horrific things that have happened to people, like, I can't do this, I gotta get out, and they go to do something else.
That's what I was thinking
inside of the department. So it's like, they might do this for a while and then go, you know what, I just need a break, I'm gonna go back to patrol.
Oh, and you can do that?
Oh, yeah.
Wow, that was so like flexible.
Yeah.
I really like that.
It depends on the department, but yeah, it's very, very flexible.
Because,
then
like,
if you have an agency like FBI, they're gonna investigate every federal crime that their jurisdiction falls under, right? So you're going to be an investigator, but they could have very different investigations that they're doing. But on like the crimes that you would typically think of police dealing with, that is gonna be your local agencies, like your county police, your city police, your state police, things like that. And then federal does a whole different ballgame.
Yeah, I don't even want to get into the FBI. I want to do something just like in this area.
Yep. If you want to have the most impact on your community, the best way in law enforcement or in public safety, the best thing you could do is join a local public
That's
department.
what I was thinking. Because like I love this area because I've been around this area for like I want to say like maybe 7 years now, and like it feels like home.
Yeah.
And like I know that there's crime that's going around, and I know that things have happened because I've heard like people and like having to go to court and stuff like that. And I always thought like I really want to help like these people, and like I know these people. I feel
Yeah.
like more connected to the people. That's why I wanted to do Gaithersburg, because I used to live
Yeah.
around that area.
Gaithersburg's a great department.
It is, yeah. I just talked to.
It's just smaller. That's the thing with it. And, but if you want to be part of the community and want to be involved in that small department there, you're gonna know everybody in the community. You're gonna get involved in that on that level, which is good. But again, if you want to move around and do homicide or something like that, it's too small of a department. They don't do that there. But there's a lot of fun things that they do there, and it's a great department. I work with those guys all the time.
I'm smart enough for homicide. That sounds so hard.
It's a lot of work. It's not. You're probably absolutely smart enough to do to deal with homicide. It's a process. You learn it on the job. You learn it on the job. So
you just learn as you go.
you just kind of learn as you go, and it's you kind of figure out kind of a step-by-step way, and then you figure out your own method of how you want to do investigations. So we would do the same thing when I was in the firearms unit. When I started there, I didn't know how to write a search warrant. That was very intimidating to me. After 10 years of being on the firearms unit or whatever, I think I wrote hundreds of search warrants. And then you think about those search warrants, I'm either searching people's houses, or maybe I'm doing a DNA search warrant, which means I got DNA off of a gun. Now I need to link it to somebody, so I'm going to get their DNA swab. So I'm going to have them swab their cheek, and they have to do it. And if they don't do it, I'm going to forcefully do it because it's a search warrant. And then we'll submit all that evidence in there and things like that. That's all stuff I had to learn along the way. I didn't know how to do that. They don't teach you that in the academy. They teach you the basic, how to be the police, how to safely do your job. And then from there, you learn from there, just like continuing education with any job, right? So like you might be an accountant, or my wife does, she's a budget manager. So she learned how to do like accounting, and then she learned how to do some other stuff, and then they would send her to other things. And then it's like, oh, now I have this broad knowledge of things that I can do with that. So yeah, you learn it on the job.
Okay, now I feel a lot better about that, because like I want to do sex crimes, and I feel like that's something that's doable for me, because I read a little bit of what it's about. But then like homicide, I'm like, I don't know how to like find a weapon out of nowhere.
It's a lot of the same though. It's a lot of the same investigation. You're going to look for DNA. You're going to interview people. You're going to build rapport with people that you don't really even want to build a rapport with. So you're going to have to honestly talk to monsters and treat them with respect until you get what you want out of them. So, which is a confession or what have you. So that's the hardest part, is talking to people.
It's like, because I want to work in sex crimes, but I feel like the hardest part is going to be looking like a rapist in the eye and just like having to speak to them like. It
might be at first. I'll tell you this. A lot of that stuff it might be intimidating with that at first, but then the more you do it, it's just a thing. It's like driving a car. It's intimidating to do it first. Get out on the highway for the first time by yourself. Oh man, that's intimidating. But now you probably do it every day, and it's fine.
Yeah, when I was in my police program, one of the teachers, he used to work in homicide, I believe, and like one of the people asked like, oh, what do you think about seeing a dead body? He's like, after a while it just like it's just a body. And I was like, I don't know if I want to get to that point.
You get there, and every officer does, unfortunately, no matter what department that you're on. It just becomes something that's
you just become numb to sensitive things. I'm a sensitive person, so I don't like. Hopefully, like I'll be good at the job, and like I'll be like one of those people where like, the job is just a job.
Well, it's good to be sensitive. It's good to have empathy. You got to have empathy for people. Right? That's the bottom line. It's like you got to be empathetic to people's situation, no matter if they're the bad guy, if they're the good guy, whatever. You got to be empathetic, because then if you don't see it from somebody else's side or whatever, you're never going to be able to understand it through investigation. So. Yeah,
I think empathy is really important for this type of job, but it's kind of hard.
Yeah. Oh, it's probably one of the hardest things after you kind of grow numb to it, or you become angry at somebody because you just watched a video of them doing something that you're like.
I just have to watch videos of people do it? Oh my gosh, I didn't know that.
Oh yeah.
Oof. Oh yeah, you do have to watch videos if someone records it. Oof.
Yeah.
I don't know how people do like those departments that have to watch like the child stuff. Like,
now, fortunately, I've never done that. That's not my thing. I don't want to do that. That's not my. I don't want to do that. But yeah. So, but the firearm stuff, I just learned it kind of through time. It was great.
I didn't know that's how detective works. But no.
Same thing with canine. You just don't go in and become a canine handler. You work as an officer. You build the fact that you're a good patrol officer. You're good at stopping cars. You're good at finding bad guys. You're good at setting up perimeters. You're good at all sorts of stuff. And then you apply for the job of a canine handler.
Oh, every job in criminal justice, you always have to be a cop first, and then.
Not necessarily. Depends on the department you go to, but most local departments, you have to be a street cop first, and then go to do the specialized job with it.
Oh, okay. I know for FBI you can train there, and then.
So they're all investigations, and they're all doing investigations on the federal level. Typically, their stuff is just not active stuff. They're somebody calling 911 about something, they are responding to, hey, we got this complaint, and now they're gonna investigate it. So that's their whole job. They may spend a year investigating a case before they even make contact with the person they're investigating. Where I usually make contact with the person and then investigate it. That's the kind of deal with it when you're talking street level detective work.
Is that the same with the CIA and Homeland? Like
So
if
CIA is a
hackers-
completely different story,
Oh, really?
because they are doing intelligence gathering, which is a different type of investigation, but it's not criminal investigation for the most part.
Oh, it's not?
Mhm.
Oh, intelligence.
So it can lead to that, but it's intelligence. So it's like, I know this guy is doing this thing somewhere. I want to find out when they're doing this thing and why they're doing this thing. That's the intelligence part of it.
Okay.
And then there's different ways of gathering that intelligence. Now, I'll say like Montgomery County Police has an intelligence unit that they do stuff on the local level. So it might be, hey, we know that there's going to be this group that does, let's say that protests or whatever, but they're never protesting. They're spray painting. They're causing traffic. They're doing damage to buildings and things like that. They might have intelligence that's coming in on that, gather information about the group, who's in it, who's doing it, or whatever, to give it to us to say, let's not have them do that behavior. They can protest peacefully. We like that. That's fine. Walk up and down the sidewalk. Let everybody know what you're mad about. That's great. Don't disrupt traffic. Don't break things. Like that's the line.
Yeah, that's just the law.
Yeah,
So.
exactly. So, but sometimes we can head that off with intelligence. So that's the kind of stuff. But CIA is a lot different because it's not a law enforcement entity. It's an intelligence entity.
Oh, so they're not officers?
Right.
Oh, got it. Can you tell me about, this is about insight and experiences,
Sure.
forgot to say that. Can you tell me about a tough case you worked on as a firearms detective and how you tackled it?
So I have probably the biggest case, I'll tell you that I worked on. It was a joint case with us and county police. Just happened to work from an on-call status. So every detective, we worked on call. So meaning a police department or the sheriff's office or whatever, somebody made a stop, they found a gun, they notified us, and we decided whether we wanted to go out and investigate. If it was like, hey, caught this dude carrying a gun. Okay, cool, arrest him. I don't need to come out for that.
Yeah.
Hey, we caught this dude carrying a gun, but it's got an obliterated serial number, and he's got a bunch of narcotics with him or whatever. Okay, cool, I'm gonna go out and help you out with that investigation. So if it's like cut and dry, cool, here's what you do, have fun. Let me know if you need anything. If it's, I think we should have more investigation.
Yeah.
So we had this case that the sergeant that I was working with, he got called out for a guy that he had information on from an informant that this guy was going to be buying a rifle from a prohibited person as a straw purchase. So this person wasn't allowed to have the gun, and this person definitely wasn't allowed to have the gun, was selling it to this person. So had that information that this sale was going to go down from this informant. They ended up finding a traffic stop on the person after they got the gun, found the gun, arrested him. It was a Galil semi-automatic rifle that he was buying, so pretty good. It's like an AK-47.
Oh my God.
So that's why they decided to do the stop and see and all that stuff. This guy ended up saying, hey, I'm going to work with you. Like, I don't want these charges. I want to work with you on this. And that's how you develop other informants. It's like, hey, arrested this guy. Oh, this guy's got information about bigger fish. So let's go after the bigger fish.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean that we're not going to pay attention to the little fish. We're just going to go after the bigger fish too. So he gave information about a guy that was selling guns. There was a bunch of shootings up in the Germantown area when this was going on.
What year was this?
This was 2008, 2009, something like that. There was a bunch of shootings going on in Germantown, and if we were recovering guns, they were all coming back to the same address in Clarksburg. This guy was the guy that he bought that gave us the information said, this guy over here is selling a bunch of guns. I don't know where he's getting them from, but he sells them out of the basement of his townhouse or whatever. My sergeant looks into it. It turns out I've got an open case on him because he's got a protection order from his baby's mother that said he threatened me with a gun and he has not turned anything into me. So we've been investigating him. I was investigating him actively about the violation of the protection order and the violation of the gun law that he is in possession of a gun illegally. So we ended up getting enough information and corroborating it enough over the next couple of days that we ended up writing a search warrant on the house and finding guns in there. He then says, well, I know this is where I'm getting these guns from, is this other guy. He used to have a firearms shop at his house that he would sell guns on, through an online broker and all this stuff, and it was completely legal. Then he lost his license. thus licensed use. So now he had a bunch of guns left over, and now he's selling them illegally onto people, basically on the street.
Yeah.
So we end up getting information and developing stuff with that. And again, remember I said that sometimes when people decide to be bad guys, they're not just bad guys in one area, right?
Yeah.
They kind of spread out. So this guy, he decided to be a bad guy because he was involved in some, this was probably 2008 because it was the housing market problem. He was involved in some shady real estate dealing. And kind of his life was spiraling out of control a little bit. He had a lot of money that he was losing. He was going bankrupt. He was, his house was in foreclosure. So he started kind of dabbling in illegal stuff to get money quick.
Yeah.
So selling of all the guns illegally because he could get fast money from that. And then he was also involved in importing fake Viagra from this place in India to bring it here, and then they were manufacturing pills and selling them online. So he was involved in shady prescription fraud stuff.
Oh, I was like selling Viagra something.
Yeah, yeah. So, well, because it's prescription fraud. You need a prescription. Anything you need a prescription for, or whatever.
Oh,
if
you
you
need
do
a
it
prescription
illegal,
for
I
Viagra?
guess. I don't know.
I
I
thought
learned
you
that
get it
from.
over
I
the
thought you
counter.
could get it over the counter too.
Yeah.
But I guess not. So, anyway, he was doing it. At least at that time, maybe you had to have a prescription. I don't know. But anyway, he was doing that. But because he was doing that, the FDA had some concerns that there was some added materials in there that weren't allowed because they were coming from an outside country and source, and safety protocols were not being followed for people to ingest this drug into their system. So he was involved in that but then he was also involved in some mail fraud. This is all things that started like we were piecing together. So we ended up getting involved. Long story short, a search warrant on the house, and we had the ATF with us. We ended up getting an informant at the time that ended up, he was caught with an 8-ball of crack, which is a baseball size thing of crack that was individually packaged. Yeah, like rock. It's rock cocaine. So a baseball size package of individually packaged cocaine, rock cocaine that he was selling. He's like, look, I don't want to take the rap for this. I know the dude that's selling guns. And it turns out to be the guy that I'm looking at. So he ends up, I got 2 informants now. So for this thing, the guy that we originally got with the gun in the car, who gave us the information, and now this guy. This guy was like, if you want, I'll go and be an informant. I will buy guns for this guy and then bring them to you. And so we give him, like you see in the movie and stuff, we give him a wire. We send him in to buy guns, and so that's how we start getting our search warrants and developing our case, right? So we're developing our case. Long story short, we get all these agencies involved because he's involved in all this stuff. So we are going to deal with the gun stuff. ATF's going to help us because we find out that under his dealership license that he had before, he was allowed to manufacture machine guns. And he was supposed to get rid of all the machine guns, but we were pretty sure that he still had them in the house. So ATF helped us out. Us, the Postal Inspector Police Department, the Postal Inspectors, their law enforcement agency because of the mail fraud, and then the FDA Inspector General's office to deal with the prescription fraud stuff. So all of that was involved. We did a search warrant of the house. Everybody jointly did stuff, and then we found a bunch of machine guns in there. And then we find out that he is taking the machine guns and putting them together and putting them in a Connex box into the port of Baltimore and shipping them over to Africa. So, and they're selling machine guns now internationally, which the ATF was very interested in that, to do that investigation on that. We end up getting an arrest warrant for him and processing him for that. And he was given bail on what he had, because all of his crimes are nonviolent. Turns out that he has a girlfriend, or now I think he got married to her, in Nigeria. And they were shipping them over to her, and then she was getting somebody over there to grab them, and then they were selling them. At the time, there was a conflict in either the Congo or Chad or something like that, and they were going over to be involved in these conflicts over there. And so, so he ended up skipping the country, and he's, as far as I know, still over in Africa. So that is probably the biggest and most complex case that I worked.
Dang, I didn't know it'd be that interesting. I thought you were gonna say somebody just, I don't even know. I didn't even know.
But it all started, if you think about it, it all started from a little thing, right? It all
Yeah.
started from, this guy has a protection order because he allegedly pointed a gun at his baby's mother and threatened her. So she got a protection order against him. He failed to turn in the guns, fails to, so we have to do an investigation and do that stuff. So this person here gets us to this bigger fish. So that's where I say with detective work, it's important to follow all your clues clues and follow all your leads and investigate it thoroughly. So that way you can find out exactly what's going on. Because yes, I could have just charged this guy with his protection order violation and a violation of the gun laws for having a gun while being under a protection order, and it could have been done with a successful case.
Yeah.
But you got to keep going. You got to keep following the leads.
I'm so glad I asked you that question, because when I become a detective, I'm following all the
You got to
clues.
follow all
I'm
the
gonna
leads.
get a
And
big case
sometimes the leads, this is where you got to have integrity, right?
Mhm.
Sometimes the leads say this person kind of did this thing, but then this information over here says maybe they didn't.
Mhm.
Well, then you got to follow that and just go, well, I can't just stop here. I have to take this and make sure that they did this.
Mhm.
You could stop there, but that would be wrong.
Yeah.
So that's where your integrity has to come in.
How does working with canines differ from working with detectives? What are the pros and cons?
Oh, so I love being in canine. I think canine is the best thing out there. I've always wanted to do it, so I'm kind of biased with that. I love being a detective, but I will take canine every day of the week. Like, that is my favorite.
I mean, you get to play with animals.
You get to play with the dog all day. I get
Yeah.
to come to work and play with the dog all day.
Mhm.
Really, all I am is the chauffeur, because if he had thumbs and could read a map and drive a car, I think I'd be out of a job. So, I love watching, you watch this animal work.
Mhm.
I love watching their brain work. I love watching them figure things out. It's super cool. So when you start out trying to teach a dog to do something, when you become a team and you can start reading each other, it's awesome to watch them do what they want to do, and then watch them be successful and be so happy that they were successful. They got the ball.
Mhm.
Stuff I always say all the time. My dogs, this is the dogs that we try to select, is if you had a bowl of food on the ground or you had the ball in your hand, the dogs would starve to death because they want that ball.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, and that's the kind of dog we're looking for. We want a dog that wants to play more than anything else.
Mhm.
So if they want to play more than anything else, I can teach them to find what I want them to find. So, so it's super fun work with the dogs. And not only that, but it's super rewarding, because not only that, but the community loves it too. Everybody loves a dog,
Mhm.
for the most part. Like, you get the dog out, everybody loves it. It's so cool. But also to know the capabilities that they bring. I can track a missing autistic kid. I could track,
Oh, yeah,
I could track somebody who just robbed a bank. I could find make sure the school is cleared because somebody called a bomb threat in on exam day. I could find a gun that some guy just threw in the bushes because he was being chased by the police, and now I can make sure that a kid's not gonna find it on a playground. All this is done with that dog. And it's stuff that we may not be able to do ourselves as humans. As the dog, in conjunction as a team, we can do all this cool stuff. So it's great to be able to come and be that support to the patrol officers on the street. So not only that, but again, why do you become the police? Drive fast, carry a gun, chase bad guys, right? That's everything you do in K9. Everything in K9 you do is go to the priority call. So, hey, there's a bank robbery, cool, K9's going. Hey, there's a shooting, cool, K9's going. Hey, there's a robbery on the street, cool, K9's going. There's a burglary, cool, K9's going. All those hot calls,
You get to go to
all of those is something that K9 is going to go to, and they're going to be assigned to go to. So you get to go to. It is a front row seat to the greatest show on earth is being in K9. You can do all of that stuff.
What are
that's
the
great.
cons, if there's any cons?
So you're constantly working.
Mm.
I take my dog home with me. He lives with me. He lives in my
Oh.
house. Yeah, which is great. I love it. That's awesome. But it also means that I have to tailor how long I'm out of the house for.
Mm.
It also means that I have to, if I need to go on vacation, I've got to put him in a kennel that the county pays for. They do all that stuff.
Mhm.
But now I got to worry about, I got to take him there, I got to pick him up, I got to, and tailor my vacation of how I'm going to do that. You just can't say, like my wife and I can't say like, oh, we're going to go away for the weekend.
Mhm.
Well, what am I going to do with the dog?
Yeah.
So I got to figure that out. So either we take him with us, do we not? Do we find a pet-friendly place? He's not really a pet,
Yeah.
all that stuff. So you gotta tailor your life to that. I'll say it's a con in the fact of it's something that you have to be mindful of, but I wouldn't trade it. It's awesome. So the other con of it is it's a lot of work. You're essentially working with a 5-year-old at the end of a leash. So they don't pay attention a lot. They're not foolproof. They're not machines.
Yeah.
You have to constantly worry about them. Hey, what are you eating? Like, what is this on the ground in Silver Spring or in Gatesburg or whatever? What is this on the street that you're eating? Stop eating stuff, and it could make you sick or what have you. I got to be concerned with, with being on a bomb dog or whatever. Is this threat legitimate? And if I go in here, is this the last time that my dog and I are going into a place? Because we got to find it. Somebody's got to find the bomb, right? So and we have chosen to do that. So same thing with the narcotics dog. Hey, if I go in here, am I going to find fentanyl? Is it going to be, am I going to, is it going to affect me? Is it going to affect my dog? So there's things to worry about that other officers don't necessarily have to worry about as much.
I'm
So
glad I asked about the cons, 'cause I was like, that seems so great, and you
Yeah.
said the cons, I was like, okay, now I gotta
there's
think
pros
about
and cons to everything, but you just have to weigh it out. Is the good is so much better than the cons that you're like, okay, I can deal with that. You can live with it. And then you figure out how. Then again, I've done it for 12 years in canine. It's just part of life now. Like it just becomes a thing. You just deal with it. So.
What's something people often misunderstand about being a canine handler and the training involved?
A lot of people think that, one, they don't know that our dog's always with us. So like in my car, he's got a kennel. The car is built out for the dog.
Yeah.
But they don't know that the dog's always with us. They think
I
that
didn't know
somehow
that.
we just get them from somewhere.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know what people think about that, but
I didn't know
people
I
don't think
thought
about it a
about
lot. But
it.
they have to come from somewhere, right?
Mhm.
Well, they're assigned to us, so they stay with us. So that's number one. Number two, they don't know that we bring them home a lot of times.
I didn't know that either.
But we bring them home with us. They're our dog. They get retired to us. So when they're done with work, like if they're old enough that they've earned their retirement and what have you, they get retired to us. So they become our house pet.
Oh.
And then I'm trying to think of what else people don't understand. Oh, they don't come pre-trained. We do the training here. A lot of times. So
Okay.
we work. It is outside of the initial training at the police academy. It is the longest school that any department holds. So to get a patrol dog, it takes about 4 months to hone the skills of tracking, criminal apprehension, finding evidence, and things like that, and building search. And then detection school takes another 3 months. So if you lump them together, we're looking at a 7-month school just to get a dog active. And then it takes them another 3 to 6 months to actually learn what their job
Oh my
is and become
gosh.
confident in it.
Yeah,
So,
you're not kidding, that's a long
yeah,
time.
it's a long time to get an actual working team up and running and together.
Mhm.
So,
That's a good question. The next section is techniques and training.
Mhm.
What skills do you think are crucial for someone to be a great canine handler?
I think patience is probably the biggest one
Yeah.
because, like I said, you're dealing with a 5-year-old at the end of the leash. All they want to do is try to please, or sometimes they get frustrated. And if you get frustrated with them getting frustrated, it's just going to not work out as a trainer.
Yeah.
So patience, I think, is the number one key to being a canine handler. Number two, I think, is experience. A lot of people want to come into the department right away, just like come in, I want to be a detective right away. I want to be a canine handler right away. Without that experience, you can't bring calmness. And the dogs need confidence and calmness. They need to know that you're working together as a team. Otherwise, if you're not confident, the dog's not going to be confident. They're going to be, I don't know why we're worried. Like, they just want to come out and play. They think that they're coming out to play. And if you come out worried, they're going to be like, why am I worried?
Yeah.
So you got to come out confident. So in that comes time and experience, right? It's driving that car on the highway. It just becomes, hey, I'm running priority to this call or whatever. It's not, you're not getting your blood pressure up. You're not spiking your heart rate.
Yeah.
It's just a thing that you do. So that it comes with experience. So calmness, I think, is helpful with that as well. So.
I agree. Well, I mean, I don't have experience, but from what you said, it sounds like it. Okay. What's the training process like for a canine? What does a regular day look like?
So I went through how long the Canine Academy takes.
Mhm.
It takes about 4 months for the patrol school and then 3 months for the detector school. And then a regular day is you get assigned to a shift. You go and do that shift. Here we are a centralized canine team, which means that we're not assigned to other duties as assigned as per se with our canine team. So you would get somebody would call you and say, hey, I have this warrant that this guy's a bad guy, he's known to carry guns, I'd like to have a gun dog here to scan something. Cool, I'll bring my dog out to you and kind of help out as that support role. Or, hey, I've got this criminal warrant for this guy, he always runs out the back door on us, can you come and prevent that? Meaning that we might be at the back door waiting for him. So, or if they do run, I can track them or send my dog because he's going to be much faster than that person after him.
Do they attack people when they chase them?
Well, they don't have thumbs, so they got to hold it somehow.
Yeah, I just thought they like bite their butt or something.
But we usually go after extremities, arms and legs.
Oh, okay.
So we train them to because what's going to kill you is somebody's hands, right?
Mhm.
We want to demobilize their hands. So if you can get their wrist or their arm of some kind and you put an 80-pound dog on somebody, it's going to be a little difficult for them to pull a gun on you.
Yeah.
So, and we only do that in extreme situations. It's not like, hey, this person just stole a candy bar from 7-Eleven. It's, hey, this person just committed an armed robbery. So we evaluate the crime that you're doing before we send a dog to them. So because it is using force.
Yeah.
And if you're using force, you better be right with what force with what you're using and why you're using it. It's got to be proportional to what the crime that happened. If it's a kid who stole a candy bar, you're not going to beat that kid up for that or whatever. But if it's a guy who just shot at somebody and is running from you and is just assaulted an officer, you're gonna have to maybe use a little higher level force to get that person in custody and keep the community safe. So, and just to make sure that you got them in custody. So, but if somebody's compliant, like, they could have done all that stuff, and then you show up with the dog or whatever, and they give up, you're just gonna put them in handcuffs.
Yeah.
Like, it depends, the situational dependent, so, so you've gotta know that as well, and that's where experience comes in also.
How do you make sure your canines are not just skilled, but also happy and well-adjusted?
Oh, so great question. So they're our partners. So, you know, just like anybody with a house pet or anything like that, we love our dogs. Like I make sure that he's 100% taken care of. Just make sure he's got water in his car, make sure he's fed and happy, you know, make sure that he gets plenty of playtime, make sure that he knows that I'm happy with his performance as well. So that's how we make sure that they're well adjusted with that. But our dogs also, because they are so high drive, they're not pets. Not a lot of them don't even want to be pet. Like they just want to work. They want to get that reward, that ball from you, because you're their alpha, and they want to work for you. So they want to try to do something. So you got to keep their brains engaged. I could run my dog all day long. I could throw a ball back and forth with him all day long. He could be huffing and puffing, all worn out. I put him away in his kennel. He's ready to go 5 minutes later. But if I give him a puzzle to solve, hey, I have this shell casing, and I throw it out in the middle of a football field. Tell him, go find that shell casing. You know, because it's got the odor of exploded powder on it, right? And he has to use his nose and think about what he's doing, and then think about how am I going to alert, how am I going to tell him to do that. He will be more worn out from that 5-minute session than me doing an hour of running with him.
Oh, because he's using his brain. Yeah.
So we want them to be stimulated mentally. So that's how we work our dogs all day.
Dang, that's a cool answer. He's shaking his head in approval.
That was pretty cool.
Next section is personal reflections. What's been the most fulfilling moment of your career so far?
I'll say, because of the fact that it's something I've always wanted to do, I think that it's, I'm very happy with the fact that I get to do this every day. Just like any job, are there problems? Yeah, there's problems in any job you go to. Nobody's ever going to be 100% happy all the time. But I love what I do. I absolutely love it. I get to go to work and play with the dog all day. You know, it's like my wife says, she goes and works on spreadsheets all day, whatever. I get something new every day. Every day I get something new. So you never know what my day is going to bring, which I love. I do like that a lot. So that's probably the most rewarding thing that I think, most satisfying thing about it. But I never thought that I would see, like, there are days that, like, just a little kid, like even walking around the courthouse or whatever, that wants to give you a high five or something like that. Like that might make their day. You give them like a little like junior deputy badge or something like that. Could make
so cool.
their stuff. But also knowing that I go and do demos at schools all the time, and that brings me a lot of joy. Why? Because seeing Montgomery County police officers do demos at my middle school made me want to be a canine handler. Well, maybe me going to that school, I might be seeing my next replacement in a few years coming up and wanting to be a canine handler. So that brings me a lot of joy.
I can't wait till I become a detective, because I'm coming in here and be like, you remember me? I interviewed you like 5 years ago. Okay. How do you handle the emotional side of working in such a high pressure field?
It's tough. There's a lot of things that you end up seeing and experiencing that will never go away. They just become part of your personality. And that's the one thing I would say I think that a lot of people need to understand. If you're going to join this career, whether anything in public safety or even the healthcare field, like an ER, nurse or doctor or what have you, you're going to see a lot of stuff that will never, ever, ever leave you, and it will change your personality. So, you're going to become a little jaded with things too. There's a lot of stuff that I see, like my wife would be like, oh my God, this stuff happened to all these people over here at this place or this thing or whatever. I'd be like, oh yeah, that sucks. It's like I just don't have this. It's just a little numb to it. It's stuff like you don't want to be numb to it. It just happens.
Because you just see it all the time.
Yeah, but there's stuff that definitely does affect you and sticks with you, and sometimes you just wake up in the middle of the night and you're like, oh, there's a spicy memory. So it's like, oh yeah, that'll happen. And I think that we're getting better in public safety of addressing mental health within officers and firefighters and all of that. I think we're getting better at it. But when I first started, it was like, hey, just suck it up, man. That's the job. That's how it goes. But I think we've learned a lot over the years with stuff as well. But you see, with all the good stuff and crazy stuff, like I will never trade any of the memories that are like, oh man, I don't like that I remember that. but I won't trade that memory for a lot of the other stuff that come along with it. So, because there's so much other fun stuff and good stuff, even though that there's a lot of times that like just the camaraderie within the departments, like there's stuff that's like, oh man, we joke around later like, oh man, we almost died, that was awesome, like high five and stuff, and it was like, that's the kind of memories and kind of things that you'll cherish forever as well, even though it could be that like somebody else that might be the worst experience of their life, if it happened to them if they weren't a cop, or a deputy or whatever. But for us, because we deal with it so often, it's like, oh man, that was awesome. So it's like, it all is kind of whatever gets your adrenaline going, kind of with that kind of thing. But definitely you want to pay attention to if your personality is changing, if you are becoming numb to people, if you're becoming angry at other people's problems, then maybe it's time to do some self-reflection that maybe you need a little help. So we have a peer support program that was started a few years ago that is officers that are specifically trained in kind of like mental health crises during, like, right after events. It could be like, and it gets triggered, like, started out, like, officers will respond to this if, like, it's, like, let's say you see a car accident or whatever, maybe a kid has died. You would have peer support come. Stuff. But we also do have, counseling and things like that that are available to us if you choose to take that.
I'm glad they have that, because I know back, like, I was reading some book, like, it was in the 70s or something, and there was this really bad incident that happened, and there was, like, no counseling or anything, they were just, like, suck it up, basically what you said. I was like, how are you even supposed to suck it up? It was really bad. It was grotesque, but I'm glad they have that now.
Yeah,
Really,
it's getting
really
better,
evolved.
but also there's still the stigma of, if I go seek this person, I'm going to be seen as weak or what have you, and I
they
think that
still have
people
that,
need to,
like,
there's still individuals with it. I know I was that way when I first started as well, just because that was the culture of it. But after being involved in multiple things that were negatively affecting my life, just outside of work, I no longer think that way.
Yeah.
So.
I think people just need to experience it themselves, because I can get, like, when you first start into it and you're tough and you're like, I can handle anything, but then you see something that's, like, really bad and it's like, no, I do need help.
Well, I think people are worried too, like the officers and deputies or whatever that are worried as well, is like there's still the thing of, okay, well, I'm seeking, help because I'm, having these, mental health episodes, and it may not be anything that's critical, but they're going to think, if I go see this person, people are going to think I'm crazy, and I'm going to get fired. And it's like, well, I don't want to get fired, so I'm not going to say anything.
Get fired for that.
So, not necessarily, no, but obviously, if you are suicidal or something like that, you might have, you might be put on a different assignment or something like that, that until you get the help that you need. And but years ago, it would have been like, if you were suicidal, hey, see you later, you don't need to be a cop anymore. And then it's like, then what do you do? Like, a lot of us, it's just what we are. So, and and it shouldn't be necessarily, you shouldn't make any job your personality. But it's hard to not. It's such a different lifestyle.
With those types of jobs, like with firefighters, with officers, like, you don't have to make it your personality, but it's such like an intense job, it's kind of hard not to.
Yeah, and it's hard to, all of your friends end up becoming, other officers or other firefighters or other public safety personnel.
And they're the only people that can relate too.
Right.
Yeah.
So, my friend group, since I'll call it from high school until now, went from less cops over here to pretty much all over here. So, and that's, just how it works. So you gotta try to find a good balance for that, like hobbies and things like that. So.
Good answer, as always. Do you have a story that shows the special bond between a canine and its handler?
Well, I'll say, so I had a dog prior to my current dog. He passed away earlier this year. He was a happy dog. So, but he had a long, awesome life. You can always tell, like, a good bond between the dog and the handler because the dog's excited. So I used to say, like, that dog lived in the house. The current dog lives outside. He likes being outside, so that's where he's at. But even my current dog, my wife hangs out with him. My old dog, he would hang out at my house, hang out with my wife, hang out with my daughter, and chill. As soon as I put a uniform on and put his vest on and he was ready to go to work, he was like, "No, Mom, I'm working." Like, he would, like, it was like, "Come on, Dad, let's go." Like, it was like, he just turned into this whole different, like, demeanor.
That is so cute.
And it's you could tell the bond is there, that they want to go with you, they want to go to work, and so I think that's the best way to tell, like, when a handler and the dog
so nice. I would love to watch a movie with like just a canine and his handler. This next section is about impact and evolution. How have you seen firearms investigations change over the years, and how have you adjusted to those changes, like the newer one?
So I've even seen, like, after I had left, the team concept is better. So the detective units are working more as a group rather than an individual. So like you get your cases assigned to you, and then maybe the group helps you work on it. And so you go, hey, can I get your help with this? Can I get your help with that? So it's more of a team concept now. Before it was very, this is my case, don't touch it kind of thing. And so I think that's better. I think more eyes on a case is better.
I always like teamwork. I've
Yeah,
always been a teamwork type of person.
Yeah. So, yeah. So I think that that's part of it. With every investigations that I've seen, is kind of the teamwork is kind of improved a lot. I think some of the technology has gotten better. Obviously, technology's gotten way better for them when I was in it. But ballistics are really, really good. It was super hard for us to get like fingerprints off of guns before because of the oils and things like that. Now they're able to get all sorts of stuff off of guns. DNA was hard to get off of. Now you can get DNA off a gun, and it's super cheap now.
What do you mean by DNA? You mean like spit or something?
No, like anytime that you're, like right now, like you just touching the table, you're leaving DNA on the table.
Oh.
So I could swab this table and say, and match the DNA that I got off the table to someone. And then if like, you know, you have a DNA imprint in our system or whatever, we can get a hit on it saying this matches this.
I do not.
So, yes, you do not. But that's where I get search warrants for people for their DNA. So,
you just go to their house.
yeah, go and you just swab their cheek, inside of the cheek, like a cotton swab. On the inside.
Oh yeah, I've seen that before.
Yep. And then you just put it in the thing you need to submit to the lab, and then you send it off to the lab, and they do their magic, and they give you results back.
I can't wait to interview one of the lab tech people.
They're pretty cool.
I don't know where to find them, but
County police have some.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I don't know if the
At
county will,
headquarters.
because I asked Montgomery County if I can record with their officers, and she said no.
Gotcha.
But then I asked Rockville, and they said yes, because Rockville's chill. And then, so I don't think they have forensic people in Rockville, right?
No, they use the county police forensics. But maybe Frederick County Sheriff's forensics.
Yes,
They got a
I did my
forensics unit.
cadet program in Frederick County,
Yeah.
so I might ask them.
Yeah.
What new tools or techniques in canine training have you found interesting, and how have they changed your work?
So I'll say the techniques is probably the most important one. The way that we're training now, when I first got on, they would call it like old school training, and that was like you had this big mean dog that you selected just because it would bite anything. Well, we don't look for that anymore. Like we look for a dog that wants to do it for fun. So there's less danger to people because you've got this uncontrollable animal, which is dangerous to everybody.
Yeah.
We want to find a dog that has a good personality. So that's number one, is the technique of selecting the right dog. Number two is making training for them fun. So instead of like, it used to be you train through what we call coercion. So meaning like, do this or else there's going to be a punishment. Or don't do that because there's a punishment. So there was no like, they were only doing it so that they didn't get hammered, basically. Whether that be a correction on their collar, whether it be anything really. Now we do it through basically reward delivery, so we get better results out of that. Not saying that there's not a spot for any dog to have some kind of punishment, because if they're doing something they really shouldn't be doing, you need to correct them on that. It just has to be fair. So you would have like a reward pairing, like, hey, you found this, like I said, find this explosive, I give you your toy, and then we play. So we, like, same thing with like, hey, we're gonna train you to bite this bad guy. We're gonna put a guy on a bite suit and all that stuff that, you know, is super fun, and then we're gonna make it fun for him. Hey, you're winning because you're doing this thing, not like this is a fight to your death. It's, hey, you're winning, and they think it's a fun game. So even when they do have to go apprehend that murder suspect, that they don't know that this person just murdered somebody or whatever, but they think they just get to go have fun. So we do everything through fun. So I think the training has led to better dogs and better quality work. I think accuracy in training as well, of saying that you know, we're guaranteeing that when our dog gets a hit on a car, like for narcotics, like I said, you want to make sure that if you're going to take somebody's freedom or property away, you better be right. So if my dog alerts, I want to make sure that I am properly alerted before we search this person's property and take them to jail. I better be right. So people's rights are super, super important to me. So Fourth Amendment's huge to me. I want to respect that as much as anything else. So if I'm using my dog to gain access to search something, I want 100% be right, and I want to be confident about it. So I think the techniques have come a long way.
I like too that you guys are giving them more rewards, because I feel like even as people, like people are gonna work better.
They're going to
if
work
they know
better
those
for it.
rewards.
Yeah. I explain this to people that don't work with dogs all the time, even like people that I work with in my agency.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you are working and you never get a paycheck,
Mm-hmm.
are you going to be inclined to come to work?
Probably. I
Probably
still
not.
like my job.
Yeah, probably not, right? But you know, even if you love your job, if I love my job, it doesn't pay the bills if I don't get paid, right?
Yeah.
So it just is something, it's a thing for me to do. It might as well be a hobby
Mhm.
at this point. So you want to get paid. So that's how the dogs are getting paid, right? They,
Mhm.
you don't pay them
With the
that.
ball.
They get paid with the ball.
Yeah.
That's how they get super motivated with that, right? So.
Let's see. Where do you think the role of canines in law enforcement is headed in the future?
I think that canines are a really good community builder. I think that I love doing like the demos at schools and showing kids
Yeah.
off that kind of stuff. I think it's really good with that. I think that's going to continue far into the future for that. I think what we're using the dogs for, we're finding that the ability of dogs is just amazing. Like they can smell so well and so many other things that you might see dogs in the future being used for something more than the non-traditional police role. So meaning like we are in the process with the county police, and I'm trying to help them out with this as well as a training instructor for that, is develop a dog that can locate electronic media equipment. So like that SD card
yeah.
that you have in there,
Mhm.
locate that for like, you know, the crimes against children and
Mhm.
stuff. Or even for maybe somebody that's doing serial rapes or something like that, where they're recording things that we
Yeah.
can find that. Cell phones in a jail,
That's
things like
smart,
that.
yeah.
So you can use a dog for that. Now that's not a dog that's going to go and apprehend a criminal or whatever. We're just literally using them for this detection ability
Mhm.
for that. I think that's going to be super important. I also think too the future is going to hold that we're going to train dogs differently for different tasks. So like right now, my dog is trained to track a suspect, and we're going on the highest risk stuff. Now, if somebody breaks into your car overnight because you left it unlocked, they stole your laptop out of there, and they're doing it to 12, 15 houses on your block, we're not going to necessarily use our dog for that. Why? It's not a crime of violence.
Yeah.
There's, you know, it's a low-level petty crime, so we don't want somebody getting bit.
Isn't that a misdemeanor?
It can be, yeah. Now it depends on how much they're stealing. But even if it was a felony, are we going to send our dog to bite somebody on a property crime, right? It's probably not worth it for anybody. For the safety of everybody, it's probably not worth it. But I could train another dog that doesn't bite, that maybe could track somebody for that. And then we're going to change our tactics to develop with that. We've also used our dogs in conjunction with like the drones, that where we're tracking and maybe a drone is overhead and they're going, hey, I spotted the dude because you guys went this way. And then we're going to able to cordon off an area,
Like a
and
manhunt?
then maybe we don't even need to send the dog to bite a bad guy. Maybe we can cordon him off enough that we can say, hey man, you got nowhere to go, you better give up. And then they give up, and that's ultimately what we want, right? So I'd rather not have somebody go to the hospital with a dog bite. I'd rather not worry about is my dog going to get assaulted by this person. I'd rather just them give up. That's what I'd rather have. And that's successful anyway. We can all high five after that. So.
That electronics thing, they can do that now?
Mm-hmm.
That is so cool.
Yeah.
Canines are so
They're-
cool.
they're very
I'm
cool.
so glad I got to interview you. I did not know all this about
Yeah,
canines.
they're very cool.
This next section is about ethical and social considerations. Okay. We're almost done. How do you deal with ethical concerns when it comes to using canines in law enforcement? Do you ever think the job is too much for the canine?
I think it can be. I think that we have to be aware of what your dog's doing, and be realistic as a handler. Like we love our dogs, right? So we're never going to treat our dogs badly. But I think we need to realize when our dogs are stressed. I think we need to realize maybe we don't have the right dog for this job. I give a great example. Is I worked with this guy who had a dog. He was a drug dog, little lab, cute little lab, great dog, little black lab, super high drive, great dog, and it was great at finding drugs. After the first couple of months of being in a car and then running lights and sirens to things, the dog started developing anxiety. Didn't want to go to work. Maybe that dog was not the right dog for that. And that was that guy's first dog that he had as a handler. So he was unaware of these cues. He was like, I don't know what my dog's doing. I don't know. He would go to search a car on the side of the road or whatever, and a tractor trailer would drive by and the dog would just not work any longer. And it's maybe that dog was not the right dog for that situation. How do you know that? Is by working them. Maybe that's a dog that you retire and they become a house pet and they're a great house pet. But then we figure out how to do that through selection. So the ethical response for the dog is you got to find a dog that's genetically able to do the job, just like any other person. If you're a police officer and you chose to do that job, you go through the academy, you think it's going to be great, and then you get out on the road and you get into your first fight and you go, yep, not for me. But we force you to continue to do that job. Is that fair to you? No, it's not fair to you. Maybe you leave and you find a job that you do like, and maybe that is something that you do, and maybe that isn't for you. So why would we force you into that? So same thing. I think we have to look at that from the standpoint of that is properly evaluate your dog and always constantly be evaluating your dog with that to make sure that you're good deal. I don't remember the rest of the question with the ethics on it.
Oh, I was saying, do you ever think it's too much of the canine?
But yeah, it can be. Yeah, it can be. But I think we have to be realistic about that. So.
What's the balance like between keeping your canine safe and meeting the demands of the job?
So this is the question that we always wrestle with, right? We do want to keep our dogs safe.
Yeah.
But why do we have the dogs? We have the dogs so that humans' lives don't be in danger, up to and including mine. Now, I take a greater risk because I'm going with my dog in some cases, but here's a great example of why do we use a dog to sniff out bombs. One, they're really good at it. It doesn't take much for them to be able to tell me that there's a bomb here. But do I want to go investigate that backpack? Do I want to go and check to see if that, no, we don't want a person to do that. We want the dog to go do that because they're good at it, right?
Yeah.
But we also want to keep the dog as safe as possible. That's the dilemma that we always wrestle with, right? So why are we sending a dog into a house to go look for a burglary suspect? One, they're good at it. They're fast, their noses work, they're going to take you to them. But are we putting the dog in danger? Absolutely they're in danger. But they don't know it. They think it's a big game and they think it's great. So that's the dilemma that we have. So we don't purposely put our dog into situations where they're going to get hurt. That's the dilemma that we look at. But we also realize that these dogs are genetically bred to do this job. And if they're not doing that job, it's not fair to them because they are happier doing the job than not doing the job.
Yeah.
So we have to kind of balance that out. That's the dilemma that we deal with dogs.
I mean, that's a pretty good dilemma because most people are like, from like the small research that I did about canines, most people are saying like, oh, it's not fair for like an animal to be put in like a dangerous situation because they're an animal. But it's like at the same time, they're being trained for that and they do enjoy it. So it's not like they know that they're
we're also projecting people behavior onto animals with when you say that. Yeah. And that's not a fact. It doesn't work that way. Like look at sure, there's a lot of animals that put themselves in dangerous situations, but that's just how they are. Yeah. So think about maybe like a team of like the hyenas or whatever that are chasing prey in Africa. Or yeah, they're in danger. A lot of them get hurt a lot, but that's just what they do. That's what they're genetically what they do. Yeah. These dogs genetically is what we're selecting them for. That
exactly. And like a lot of people don't know that.
Yeah. My dog, I'll tell you, he does not make a good house pet. He doesn't want to be a house pet. He would rather sit in my car and drive around with me all day, knowing that something could happen, rather than sit at home with my wife and hang out at the house. He just doesn't want to be pet. He just wants to work. So, yeah.
I can relate to that. How do you make sure that your work with canines has a positive impact on the community?
I think that showing the community exactly what we do kind of takes some of the kind of the misnomers out of things. I don't think that a lot of people see now. Like when I grew up, it was like, oh, dogs go and attack people, right? Yeah. Like this is what we do. That's right. But that's not what they do. Like we use them for all sorts of stuff. So we bring them out into the community. We have the community see. We do the canine demos at schools to show them, hey, this is our dog. This is what they do. This is how we're training them. This is how positive it can be. Stuff. And we take that stigma away of what the dogs are. We're making these dogs go out and bite people. We're making them angry. No, we're doing it for fun. Like we're making it fun for them. So you show that to the community that this is a good thing that we're doing, and it's a positive impact with that. But then also you have to explain to the community too about like when you're out and about. I may not be able to explain to you at this second, like, hey, I'm looking for a robbery suspect. Let me tell you how I'm doing that. You're like, hey, I'm looking for a robbery suspect. Get in your house. I'll come and talk to you in a minute. And that's the kind of thing. But you have to go back and talk to that person. You just can't tell them to close your door and lock it, and then not explain why later at least. But sometimes we're just not able to do that. But I always try to follow up with that to show the positive impact of what we're doing.
And not keep people in the dark too.
Yeah, and also I think too is like using social media, using other aspects to say, our dog found this guy doing this thing. Great. Let people know that this is a positive thing that we're doing in the community.
Yeah. Good answer. This next section is about advice and reflections. what advice would you give to someone who's thinking about becoming a canine handler or working in a firearms investigation?
So I would say, first, become a good street cop,
Yeah.
you know, no matter what it is. No matter what your agency does, become good at the basics. If you're good at the basics, you can do the advanced stuff much easier. So that's for anything. And I'll preface that with not just canine or not just firearms investigations, but find what you like. It might be fun for you to work with canines, or you think it's going to be fun for you to work with canines. Just know it's a lot of work. If you're a person that doesn't want to put in a lot of extra effort and a lot of extra work, and you want people to kind of just tell you what to do, that's not going to be the job for you.
Yeah.
And you have to be a lot of self-reflection with that. Same thing with a detective. It's a lot of self-motivation. You are following the clues. Nobody else is going to tell you to do it. You've got to do it, and you got to do it the right way. If you're unable to do that, maybe just running calls and taking reports is for you, because once you're done with that report, it's done. You know, and there's nothing wrong with that. Maybe this is the wrong type of law enforcement for you. You know, there's a lot of other agencies out there that do a lot of different things, and that's why I tell people is like, don't just, and I know you're doing this for criminal justice purposes, and because there's so much in criminal justice, not just even criminal justice, but in the broader thing of criminal justice, but in the smaller thing of law enforcement. There's so many different agencies that do so many different things. I like the agency that I've been involved with, but there's other agencies that I'm like, man, that's a cool mission too. Like I think of like Natural Resources Police. Hey, I love hiking. I go out in the woods all the time with my wife. We go hiking, take the dogs, all that stuff. That's what those guys do all day long. They ride four-wheelers in the woods.
Oh, like park rangers?
Yeah, they're not park rangers, they're Natural Resources Police. So what they're doing is they're protecting the parklands. They also do ship boardings for the Chesapeake Bay for ships that are coming from other countries and things like that, just doing inspections and things like that. Like they're making sure that people are recreating properly and correctly, like on the bay, making sure that they're being safe in their boats and things like that. That's a fun job. Like they're out in the nature all day long. That's a cool job. And it's another one that I've later, if I could have gone another way, that's an awesome gig to get in. But then there's some people that like went up for that want to retire, and they go and do like a federal police job, like at one of the federal installations that are around DC, like go like U.S. Capitol Police or something like that, where it's like, hey, our job's super important, but it's just basically to watch and just to make sure that people are orderly, making sure that they're doing the thing, getting people to actively stop doing what they're doing if it's bad on your property. That's a different type of law enforcement, and that's some people are cut out for that too. So it really does depend. Take some soul searching and just go, this is what I want my career to be. This is what I like to do. So I want to do that, and then get there. So same thing with like firearms investigation or canine handlers. Find what you think that you're going to be good at. Find what you have a passion for, and then go and find that in the law enforcement realm.
That's a good answer. I also wondered this, it's not on this, but it's just something I always wondered. To be an officer, or to be a detective, or to be anybody in law enforcement, do you have to be a super serious person? Because
no,
like
I'm a goofball. I joke around all the time.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Cause like I'm a goofball as well.
Yeah.
We are two goofballs,
Yeah.
and like I'm like I would like to say a super nice person. I'm very empathetic. But like when I've been trying to find a lot of the people to work with, they're like super serious, and it's like
Well, I think that sometimes people put on a super serious persona just because they think it's what people want to see out of an officer. But I try to joke around with people. I try to be not serious. There's a time for seriousness. Absolutely, there is. There's a time to be serious. But I think it's good to have a sense of humor. It's good to joke around with people. It's good to be a person around other people. Like I joke around with people all the time. If I'm not actively doing something, like I'll say hi to people. I'll talk to them. I'll joke around with them and all that stuff. And
That's a good. Okay, I'm glad that you said that, because I was like, do I have to be a super serious person to do this job? Okay. Well,
I'm probably the least serious person that you'll, in general. There are times that I should be more serious, but I'm not. So, but I think it's whatever your personality is. Use your personality to do the job in law enforcement. So, because I joke around with people, because I build a rapport with people, because I'm personable with people, that's how I would conduct an interview. I don't come in like a hard ass to do an interview. I come in and like, hey man, tell me about yourself. Tell me what find something that you mutually can agree to, right? Yeah. And then from there, build upon that. So that's how you build a rapport with people, and that's how you build a rapport with the people in your community, whether it be the community being the courthouse, whether the community being Rockville, whether the community being Montgomery County as a whole, whether the community being the state. So that's how you build it.
Last question. Looking back, is there anything you do differently or any lessons you've learned that you'd like to share?
I think there's always things that you look back and go, oh man, if only I'd known this.
Yeah.
But how do you gain that?
Mhm.
It's only by failure. It's only through experience. So learn the lessons from your experience, but also learn the lesson from other people's experience too. Like, don't discount stuff just because, oh, that old head over there did this years ago or whatever. Maybe there's something to that. Maybe there's not. Just figure out what you like. Figure out what you're learning with that, and then use your experience, use your knowledge, and then also be confident in yourself.
Mhm.
That's pretty much it. So.
And with that, that is the end of episode 2. Thank you.
Absolutely.